On a train, Robert McCall approaches a man, demanding that he return a young girl he had abducted from her mother. The man sends his goons after Robert, but he easily overpowers them and the Turkish man. In Boston, bookstore owner Grace receives a call and rushes to reunite with her daughter. Robert works as a Lyft driver and enjoys listening to people's conversations as he drives them around. He has a regular customer, Sam Rubinstein, who desperately tries to retrieve his deceased sister's painting. Sam survived the Holocaust, but his sister died in the death camps. The painting is valued at $12 million, and each time Sam goes to court, he is asked to produce evidence to prove his cause. One night, Robert picks up a girl and quickly deduces that she has been drugged and molested. He takes her to the nearest hospital for treatment and then returns to the apartment he picked her up from. He sets a timer on his phone and mercilessly beats the guys who had molested the girl. Robert finds his beloved friend Susan Plummer in his apartment. Susan had been helping him get the information he needs to help people out as the Equalizer. Robert is devastated when he finds his apartment's courtyard vandalized. While removing the graffiti on the wall, another resident, Miles, offers to clean it up for a small fee. Miles is an art student who makes some side money dealing. Robert agrees to let him clean the wall, but he has to do it after school. Sam finally gets the evidence he needs to get his painting. However, the judge dismisses his claim, making Sam feel like he has lost his sister twice. In Brussels, Belgium, a man returns home and finds his wife assaulted. The assaulters come in, execute the wife while the man watches, and then place a gun on his hand, forcing him to also eliminate himself. Susan is informed that the deceased worked for the DIA, so she and another agent, Officer David York and Robert's former partner, decide to go to Brussels and investigate. Before leaving, Susan and her husband have dinner with Robert. Robert asks Susan for information regarding Sam's sister's painting. In Brussels, Susan finds something amiss in the deceased's house, but decides to share it with York on the plane ride back. She forwards what she has learned about the painting to Robert. She goes to her hotel room to grab her things, but two men accost her, demanding she give them the money. Susan has no idea what they're talking about, and a severe fight ensues. Robert is hanging out with Miles when he gets a phone call from Susan's husband. He hurries to Washington and observes Susan's house. He only makes himself present once all the guests leave, seeing that the world believes he is dead. Meanwhile, the two robbers who had executed Susan receive a phone call. As soon as they answer it, the house explodes, killing them instantly. After, Robert meets Susan's husband, who shares that Susan was killed in a robbery. He wonders how she could have been targeted, seeing as she never wore jewelry save for her marriage ring. Robert gets Susan's last cases and findings and hacks into the police system to access the police report on her murder. Robert's thorough investigations make him deduce several things. He ambushes York in Washington and shares his findings. York is excited to see Robert alive, and the two men catch up. York reveals that he hadn't spoken with the rest of their teammates after Robert's quote-unquote death. Robert reveals that he's been looking into Susan's case. The fatal stab wound Susan sustained had to be taught, so the robbers had been sent to eliminate her, not rob her. Furthermore, looking at the security cameras made Robert see that Susan never pressed the elevator button on her floor, as the robbers had already pushed it. He has realized that the deceased man in Brussels couldn't have killed his wife in the murder-suicide as he was right-handed, and the wife's bullet trajectory showed only a left-handed man could have shot it. Susan was targeted because she was close to figuring out the men behind the gruesome murders. Robert returns to Boston and promises to reach out in case of anything. One day, he witnesses Miles being picked up by a local gang. Susan's unjust death infuriates him so much that he storms the gang's hideout and drags Miles out. Miles wants to kill someone to join the gang, but Robert dissuades him. He tells Miles to use the opportunity he has to be a skilled artist instead of falling into a trap that will lead to downfall. Later, Miles visits Robert and reveals that he's chosen to get a good job and pay his bills and buy food. He offers to paint Robert's house for a fee. Robert agrees to the deal, but has Miles read a book first. Robert picks up a passenger heading to the airport as he wants to attend his daughter's birthday. On the drive, Robert notices something in the man's demeanor and changes routes. The man doesn't comment, so Robert calls him out. The man draws a knife, but Robert easily overpowers and eliminates him with his gun. Robert gets the man's cell phone and then burns him and his car. He unlocks the phone, which is military encoded, so he travels to Washington. He meets up with York and shares all that has transpired. York promises to look at the phone in the office while checking his watch anxiously. Robert calls a number on his phone and York's cell rings. York realizes the jig is up as Robert asks him what went wrong. York shares that after Robert's death, their team was disbanded. They had been taught to kill people, so they felt betrayed. Consequently, he and the other guys, Kovac, Ari, and Resnick, went into private practice, killing people for a fee. Susan would have figured it out, so York killed her in the hotel room after she managed to escape the two robbers. York escorts Robert outside where the rest of the guys are waiting. Robert reveals that he doesn't care what the guys do to make money, but their mistake is killing Susan. He promises to kill each and every one of them. York and his guys want to abduct Robert, but he hitches a ride with York's wife, leaving the guys devastated. York sends his men to execute Susan's husband in their bid to tie up loose ends. Luckily, Robert sneaks into the house and saves Susan's husband before the killers arrive. He tells him everything that is going on and how York was involved in Susan's murder. On the way back, Robert gets a call from Miles, who is painting at his apartment. Robert hears the neighborhood dogs barking incessantly and deduces something is amiss. He turns on his security home system and sees York and his goons picking the lock. Robert gently guides Miles into a hiding spot in his bookcase. York and his men search the house and York reaches for the bookcase's mirror. Miles can see him, but York cannot see who is inside. He draws a smiley face on the mirror and is about to shoot when Robert calls him. He asks them to water his plants as he can see them in the house. York warns him against going to war with them, but Robert isn't worried. He tells York that he knows where to find him. Miles exits the apartment after the men leave, but he is captured as York had been waiting. He deduces that Robert is in his seaside hometown. He and his men drive down, but a restricted entry as a hurricane approaches, and the town has been evacuated. York shoots the officer and drives into the town. He instructs his men to go after Robert while he positions himself on the town's watchtower. Kovac spots Robert in a barn and goes after him. Unfortunately, Robert executes him with a spear gun. York instructs the other men to lead Robert into the ocean. Ari passes down a street and finds numerous pictures of Susan. As he takes in the scene, Robert ambushes him and executes him by cutting him up with knives. Resnick finds Ari seconds before he passes away. Due to the bad weather and wind, vision is challenging, but Robert maneuvers easily as this is his hometown. Robert draws Resnick's attention to his wife's former bakery. Resnick gets there and throws a grenade, but a massive explosion occurs since Robert has poured floury gunpowder on the floor. The explosion's impact kills Resnick, leaving York alone. York speaks to Robert, revealing that he has Miles tied up in his car as a contingency plan. York starts shooting at the car's trunk to draw Robert out. When this fails, York wants to kill Miles, but Robert shoots the car's tires, saving Miles. The winds get intense, knocking York over and making him hit his head on the poles. This causes York to lose his mind, so Robert easily ambushes him. A fight ensues with both teams equally powerful. However, Robert manages to get York's knife and cuts him up pretty badly. He stabs him in the ribs the same way he had executed Susan and watches as life drains from York's eyes. Finally, he slices York's neck and throws his body down on the rocks, watching as the ocean washes away his body. Robert finds that Miles has a gunshot in his leg. He takes him to his old home and patches him up. The events shake Miles and he wonders who Robert is. A few days later, Miles is on a bus to school when a girl asks him what he's drawing. He reveals he is drawing a superhero character based on Robert. Miles finishes his mural on the wall, impressing the tenants. Susan's last information on the painting helps Sam reunite with his sister, who is alive and well. Robert returns to his old house and removes his ring, symbolizing his choice to move on. Do leave a comment telling us your favorite part of the movie. Hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next recap. Until next time, folks, take care and goodbye.